Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, on this episode of Outside the Locker Room. It's your man, the Birdman, and of course, the Don of Sports. What's going on there, Donnie?
What's going on, Birdman? Glad to be here. Another great week. Episode 3.
Episode
3 for you guys. And listen, just glad to be here. Glad to be able to talk. We got some hard-hitting topics today, man.
That we do.
And listen, we want you guys to view in, lock in on us, send your comments, send your rebuttals, whatever it is that you have. Can't go further without saying shout out to Whip. Shout out to the whole TSJ 101 Sports team. You guys diligently working day in, day out, and we appreciate it. And, I'm glad to be here, man. And let's get to it.
Absolutely. Shout out to CEO Whip. Shout out to the whole Sports Junkies team for keeping us abreast of all the latest and greatest news. You want to check us out, TSJ101sports.com for all your latest and greatest news. You can subscribe, of course, through the website. You can also check us out on your Instagram, your Facebook, your Twitter. You can follow the Don of Sports, which is at Child of God, and at the Birdman78 for all your latest and greatest news. But we got to get into it, man. We got some hard-hitting topics. I know preseason, third game, dress rehearsal games. A lot of the starters are playing the first halves. We've seen Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions.
Didn't look like it.
Put up a 0.
Didn't look like it yesterday.
Put up a dud. Yeah,
didn't look like it yesterday.
A horrible sighting of football in its entirety. No touchdown scored, but we'll get into that.
It was a baseball score.
Yeah, hey, the Cleveland Indians against the Philadelphia Phillies.
That's what
I didn't know which score that was, but it is what it is. The Super Bowl champs are still continuing to have woes in the preseason, but that's what they call it, the preseason, to work on all the kinks. And I'm telling you, man, if you're a Philadelphia Eagle fan, you can't be concerned. I mean, Vitae, the left side, is a little concerning. With Jason Peters going to come back at 35 years of age, how he's going to look. But you rather get those woes in the beginning than have them later on.
Absolutely.
But that's going to be later on into the show. But we got Urban Meyer. We're going to talk a little Adrian Peterson, the return. Scott Burgundy and Golden.
Back.
He is back. And we're going to tell you how you can win a TSJ Outside the Locker Room t-shirt.
Woo.
All you got to do is remember what I say or what he says. Just listen to the show. That's it. This is how you win.
Lock in with us, people. We're here for y'all.
Lock and win. But the first topic at hand is going to be the Urban Meyer, Ohio State's coach, of course, in the midst of what we thought was going to be a firing or a steeper punishment, gets suspended for 3 games. Don, I mean, I'm shocked. I'm flabbergasted at this, the outcome of this, and it just seems to me, and before we get into the details and let you know exactly what's going on behind the Urban Meyer story, it just seems to me, and a lot of men are going to beat me up about this, but it just, when it comes to sexual abuse or assault or anything involving women, I really start to see that a lot of these athletes, and it could be me, Don of Sports, are getting extra leeway. Their punishment is not as steep. And when we see things like this abuse that goes on throughout sports, especially in football, it's in all sports. Even Tiger Woods got a little whiff of that. But is it me, or does it seem like the punishment doesn't fit the crime? When you look at this story here, I mean, everybody in the sports world was shocked by this 3 games little slap on the. I mean, I slapped my 4-year-old lighter than this. I mean, I'm really shocked at the outcome of this Urban Meyer story and him being suspended for 3 games. And not only being suspended for 3 games, but he also can coach and talk to his players. He just can't be on the sideline. So for all that, I'm saying they might as well let this man, be on the sideline. I mean, what are your thoughts on the Urban Meyer and outcome with his suspension?
I'll be honest, man. I'm appalled at what took place. I don't think 3 games is nearly enough I'm not surprised, simply because, I think that the organization and the Ohio State as an entity made a decision based off of, what's going to be best for their team going forward, and not necessarily doing the right thing by Courtney Smith. First of all, kind of going a little bit back into it. That first, interview that he did at that media session,
right.
The first one that he did, when the reporter, addressed him about it, and he completely flablasted the reporter, saying, where did you get a story like this? I have no recollection of what you were talking about. Obviously, he was lying. And that came out to be true through several reports, that he knew what was going on between Zach Smith and Courtney Smith, dating back to, 2009, maybe even before. And, he knew about the reports of, allegedly Zach Smith, putting his hands on, Courtney Smith, even when she was with child. Obviously he put, in front of this situation, Zach Smith, because of his, his relationship with, his mentor. And it wasn't until he passed away that he actually, moved on this situation, and Zach Smith was fired.
Right.
But, when you look at the entirety of this situation, I am appalled that this was only 3 games, for the simple fact that this was a cover-up job.
Absolutely.
When you look at the text messaging that was exchanged between Courtney Smith and Urban Meyer's wife, who was also still
that's the shock. Yes.
employed by the Ohio State. She should be relieved from her duties. He absolutely should have probably, if not been relieved of his duties, I don't know that he should have been suspended, but he should have gotten a lot more games than just 3 games. He should have missed more meaningful Big Ten games, in my mind. And lastly, I'll say this because I know you got some comments on it. There was no contrition. There was no remorse for not only his actions, but in the cover-up job, in that opportunity that he had the other day to come clean, to say that he botched it and mishandled it, not being fed this, because there were reports that there was a 12-hour meeting because he was very unhappy that his name is being dragged in the mud and that he's even been accused, and really any kind of suspension is coming his way. The AD and him, he was completely upset. So you've seen that come across, obviously, in the interview with the media session, because he never even acknowledged Courtney Lee's name. Or Courtney Smith, excuse me. Even when the reporter brought her name up and said, is there anything you want to say, to Courtney Smith, in reference to, this situation? And he turned around and said, I'm upset for all those that's involved in this situation. No. This is about Courtney Smith and the abuse that she took for several years on the hand of Zach Smith, who you allowed and turned a blind eye to and allowed to maintain, in that organization while he was being a monster at home. So I'll let you get more into it. I got more to say about it, but I'll let you go.
Absolutely. It's a black eye on NCAA and how they handled this situation. We've seen countless situations, both in the NFL, NBA, anywhere. I haven't heard the NHL, but it's in sports in general, and it just seems like it's a blind eye turn. And I really think it's because of the organization. If this happened with a Toledo, the coach would have been fired. If this happened with William Pitt, the coach would have been fired. But because it's Ohio State and what that team means to college football in general, and the rivalry that it provides via with Alabama, I really think this is botched. And it goes to show you where you have to put things into perspective, because now you're starting to lose. One is disrespectful, of course, to the woman, and one is disrespectful to the public in general. When you're going, this is not a drug case. This is not athlete getting found with marijuana in his bag. This is someone. This is a domestic abuse debate. I don't understand how this continues to get swept under the rug with a 3-game suspension. If I'm an Ohio State fan, I may reconsider my allegiance to Ohio State. I know the women should, but the men should too, because this we can petition and get Meek Mills out. We can petition and do all these other things around the world to get our point across. This is an outrage that he is still coaching. His wife should be upset she can't be upset. She was involved in it. So when you look at the 23-page report, and I don't mean to be long-winded here, Don. When you look at the 23-page report and how
what conveniently came out after.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The media press session that they had.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And these allegations was in 2015. But it easily shows in the report how his text message strand was deleted from 2 years prior, and how it even came out how somebody coached up on how to delete his text messages. That doesn't show to me like there was somebody that didn't know what was going on. And let's call a spade here. You got caught. Even if the punishment doesn't fit the crime as far as what they're giving you, I would have said, listen, I'm going to step down, or I'm going to sit out this year. I'm going to be a man and say, hey, if you're not going to punish me, I'm going to punish myself. And I know, the organization and the ties that Ohio State has and all the things that go along with it in college football, which I think is one of the biggest scams also. Mm-hmm. And we'll get to that another time. I just think this was just mishandled. You would have thought Roger Goodell was running the NCAA as well, because he's mishandled this.
The NCAA hasn't stepped in just yet, which
I
think they should. This is what the brass at Ohio State decided to do after gathering all the information. They probably looked at it and said, "Listen, since Urban Meyer's been the head coach here, he's won us 90.1% of the games. They were pedestrian prior to him coming there."
Okay.
He's delivered.
So winning is more important than someone's safety. Women, this is the thing about sports, Don, and we love sports. It's an escape from reality. It's an escape from our lives, our everyday jobs. If you are blessed to be in the business to talk about sport things that you love, then hats off to you, kudos to you. But not everybody's in that area, in that arena, and to zone in into a game, into your television, your phone, or whatever way you're looking at sports. It is a breath of fresh air. But we have to realize that there are principles that still have to be upheld. And this is one of them. I mean, you cannot ignore the fact. I mean, just think of the history. Just think of the history of the athletes that have been connected with domestic violence. And then you tell me if the punishment, do you remember them ever being punished? I know you're going to hate me for this. Floyd Mayweather. Numerous occasions of domestic disputes. He's also one of the most accomplished boxers ever to live. And he's still making money. Randy Moss was accused, who was, of course, recently just inducted into the Hall of Fame.
This is alleged. This is accusation.
These are all alleged. Well.
There were some convictions.
Floyd, I mean,
yeah.
Ocho Cinco, Dennis Rodman, even Jim Brown. Like, there's recent activity. Of course, we know, what's the guy that was with the Cowboys that went to the UFC?
Was it Harvey?
Yeah, dang, I'm losing his name. Jeez.
Greg Hardy.
Who actually, allegedly, we believe he paid off the woman, but then went to go to UFC. You know what? I can't beat up on a woman. So you know what? I'm going to take out my anger. I'm going to go do some wrestling or do some pro fighting. It doesn't make any sense. He has not returned back to the league. Was eligible.
He's won his first couple fights.
Oh, well, woo-woo. I mean, I hear you out there, Aaron. Aaron is even acknowledging that he didn't even mention her name. Mm-hmm. It's just some things that we just need to keep in perspective.
Well, so with all due respect, to keep it fair.
Okay, let's go fair, because I can go off the deep end.
There was a obviously after all the backlash and everything that took place today, he did another mentioning behind everything that took place, and he did, he said, I understand my lack of more action in this situation has raised concerns about this commitment. I once again apologize for this. I extend my empathy to all women, men, and families who are affected by relationships violence. This has been a real learning experience for me. I fully intend to use my voice more effectively to be a part of the solution, which is part of my statement. And he also extended an apology to Courtney Smith for the first time in this situation. So to be fair to him, he did triple back, I guess, today and take place. But listen, we've seen, I'm a guy of second chances as well.
Okay.
But when you see situations like that takes place, when you're the head coach, the buck stops with you. And there's multiple reports of, talking about the, Urban Meyer bringing Courtney Smith and Zach Smith into his office when there were alleged, accounts of abuse. Now, I don't know to what extent, they divulged information. We also know that Zach Smith was arrested for domestic violence, was not charged. So I guess they did not feel that there was enough information to charge, which for me, I'm kind of questioning that because, when you talk about the police department around a big organization, a big, college like Ohio State, I find it very convenient that they came to that conclusion. I'm not surprised about that. But, needless to say, I don't feel like the 3 games was enough. To me, in this day and time that we're in, not only necessarily with the Me Too movement, but with domestic violence and the heightened awareness that we have here, I feel like more should have been done. And I hope the NCAA steps in and looks at this and maybe comes to the conclusion that Ohio State did not, act swiftly enough and with the right amount of force that this situation calls for.
Now, staying with that, Don, do you think that Ohio State as a whole, and being though there's multiple parties that are involved in knowing some or having getting wind of some information, and then they said they didn't trust him in his outlet. They didn't. His character was in question in 2015. So why is this coming out now? In 2015, you were worried about his character then, and seeing that he was on this drunken stupor and that he was violent and tend to rage, but nothing comes out. Mum's the word. We've seen something similar, not to this effect, but in Penn State, they were penalized heavier than this guy. And then I understand this sexual abuse. That's a different animal. But 3 games, they lost recruitment. They lost bowl games. Rest his soul. And of course, their coach passed. And I just think I don't understand how this goes unlooked. I'm the Penn State punishment I think fit, and then they went to the extent, of course, taking down the statue and then putting it back up. But I don't understand if you are a player in that locker room, Don. If you're the number 1 recruit coming in there, or you're the star quarterback or running back, whatever position you want to have, how do you feel? I mean, is this something that you should just focus on your game, focus on getting to the NFL?
Listen, man,
what perspective do you
I
take?
I hate to say it.
You're about to say it. You're about to piss some people off.
I hate to say it, but I think probably to those players, listen, they came there because of Urban Meyer's recruitment. They came there to play for Urban Meyer.
Okay.
And so, sadly, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those players, was wishing that this whole situation would just wash away so that they would still be able to play under Urban Meyer. Because I think these kids, at least some of them, have aspirations of playing at the next level, and they know that their best bet in doing so is probably playing, for an Urban Meyer team. But, listen, Urban Meyer's going to miss September's first game versus Oregon State, September 8th game versus Rutgers, September 15th game versus TCU.
Are they cause for alarm?
I mean,
can they win that
TCU
game?
is ranked there 16th ranked, but
Okay.
The only Big Ten game he's missing is against Rutgers, and they're
Wow.
not a ranked team.
Is Ray Rice still there?
And the first game he's not allowed to be with the team in via practice or the game. But the second 2 games he can actually run the practices. He just can't be on the sidelines for the game.
So let's just say this is a bunch of hogwash. He's suspended for 1 game.
When you really
One
look at it,
game.
even though we can't be on the sideline for those other 2 games, he will be running the practices. He will be installing the game plan. So the only thing that they need to do is carry out, the architect that he lays out. 2 weeks after that, they're playing Terre Frank Penn State. He should have missed that game. 4 weeks after that, they're playing Purdue, and 2 weeks after that, they're playing Michigan State, who's ranked 11th. I think he should have missed all those games.
Absolutely.
At minimum, if someone would have, if he would have ended up losing his job over this, I wouldn't lose any sleep over it because of the seriousness of this crime. And really, this is a situation where it's, coming out to being made about whether Urban Meyer is going to lose his job, how many games Urban Meyer is going to miss. But we're not talking enough about the victim. Listen, he went and he was trying to hide, and cover up for Zach Smith, who was the grandson of his mentor. Well, what about his mentor's great-grandchild that was inside of Courtney Smith's womb while he was abusing her? I mean, these are the things that are not being, talked about enough. And, although, again, we're supposed to say to keep it, professional, that these are alleged events that took place. I just don't like the smell of this. I really hope the NCAA have stepped in for far more trivial things than this.
Absolutely.
They need to step in and lay down their hand on this situation and hopefully dive into a deeper punishment for Urban Meyer, because for me, this is about as egregious as it gets.
Absolutely. Aaron on Facebook Live, thank you for chiming in. Also chimes in about Hugh Freeze and how Ole Miss was punished, of course, for paying players. Now, we know that's a thing that's always been happening. And to tell you the truth, I think it still happens. You're not going to tell me that professional athletes don't get bells and whistles, cars, jewelry.
As long as you're coming college football, that's going to happen.
It's going to happen. They're not going to catch these guys. It's sad, but of course the bling bling is going to continue to happen throughout before the drafting process. I mean, you see people go out there before they get drafted, black diamonds in their ears.
How'd you get it?
How did you get that? Did Jacob let you rent that, or he knew he was getting paid?
And
that's quite possible.
in some situations.
But when I see black diamonds in 3rd round picks' ears, like, somebody's paying somebody, But thanks for weighing in there, Aaron. And I don't know. It's just it's a bad look, and of course, sports and tragedy kind of it kind of washes a lot of different things away that we see that should be we should be having higher regard. But winning, they say, cures everything. I don't like the statement. I mean, I've seen different races sit together that maybe didn't like each other, or 2 people that didn't like each other sit there and watch a game and forget all about not liking a particular, or having a particular reason why not liking this person and to watch a game and to share laughs. I seen it happen in tragedy, and it's sad that that has to happen that way. But when it doesn't cure everything, this is something that's going to happen again and again and again until somebody puts their foot down.
And that's why I think that the punishment needed to be a lot more stiff. Ohio State has done nothing but made concessions. Mm-hmm. They're covering up for Urban Meyer just as he covered up for Zach Smith. I mean, even leaning to the point of coming out and saying that the medication that Urban Meyer is on is causing him to have like memory loss and forgetfulness, and so when he was up on that media session, he didn't intentionally lie or fabricate. There could have been some memory loss due to the medication. Excuse me. He is arguably the second best, 3rd best if you want to, him. I got it. Nick Saban. I got it. Urban Meyer and Dabo Swinney. But you can interchange those other 2. Mm-hmm. College coach in the nation. I mean, how can he be on this medication, have memory loss, and install great game plans week in and week out to beat quality organizations? I don't buy that one bit. Now, I know that there's been some reported issues Even dating back from when Urban Meyer left Florida, that he was on medication, dealing with some stress issues and things of that nature. But don't give me that. He knew exactly what he was doing when he covered up for Zach Smith, and it sickens me to continue to talk about this. Understanding and knowing his fate is very little from a punishment standpoint, but I'm hoping that the NCAA has an opportunity to really, really jump in and right these wrongs here and listen, the punishment is not going to stop the tragedy and the things that allegedly took place with Courtney Smith, but what it will do is, one, deter head coaches of big programs or small programs alike to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
And listen, if you hear of anything like this, player, coach, whatever, this has to be reported to the AD. This has to be reported to the NCAA, and the right and appropriate steps need to be made in these cases. So this should be hopefully become a deter if the NCAA steps in, and for anybody else outside of that, I mean, this is really just putting a black eye on some of the things that we've talked about, for some time now.
And this is what they do. They just cover it up. Just cover it up. Sports, and I love sports, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to move on to the next topic, but I love sports more than the next person. I know my wife hates it, but I love to eat and breathe, and I think about sports, whether it be fantasy football, whether it be regular football, it doesn't make a difference. But at the same time, there are principles that are that should be valued over sports. And I think if you're an Ohio State fan, if you are a member of that college, or you are a graduating member, or you're a former member of that college, I mean, it's something that you need to be taking a look at. We can stand up for a lot of different things, but when it comes to most times when it comes to women's rights and domestic abuse, it just gets overlooked. And frankly, I'm tired of it. Something has to be done. I don't care though that Ohio State's one of the biggest colleges in America, and it's the most popular, and it's great for football. I really don't care. That's what you're going to have to do. Sometimes you're going to have to, if a player that's of an Ezekiel Elliott, a Carson Wentz, somebody or Aaron Rodgers. We've seen Ben Roethlisberger get, not to jump, it's still on topic, but we've seen Big Ben get accused of rape twice. Now, I don't know if this is true, but there's something to be looked into if somebody is accused of that twice. The investigation was short-lived. So I think we should take more focus on this domestic abuse in sports, period. It's disgusting, and just something needs to be done. But on to other topics. It was a good topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But elsewhere around the league, I mean, first of all, once again, shout out, check us out on TSJ101sports.com for all your latest and greatest news. You guys have a chance to win a t-shirt today. It actually has both of us on it. Yeah, TSJ is giving you an Out the Side of Locker Room t-shirt. Now, all you got to do is just remember a stat line that I say. I'm only going to say one stat line in this whole broadcast. So you have to figure it out, put it on the Facebook, and get your t-shirt. Simple as that. And we have
I'll throw a few out there, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, mine's a little bit more important. But anyway, Adrian Peterson is back in the NFL. I mean, he had a little run with Arizona. He's become quite the journeyman. Of course, ended up starting off with Minnesota, short stint in New Orleans, very short. Then traded to the Cardinals, and now is in the NFC East. If you look at the NFC East, Don, you got Ezekiel Elliott, Jay Ajayi, Saquon Barkley, and now future Hall of Famer, I would say, Adrian Peterson. What are your thoughts on Adrian Peterson coming in to the pretty much an empty backfield, I would say, in Washington? You got Thompson out there, who's a good change of pace back, but not a 3-down back. I really think Adrian Peterson is going to get more carries than he got in the last 2 years. What are your thoughts on Adrian Peterson landing in the NFC East, home of the Super Bowl champs?
Listen, I mean, this is obviously, in my opinion, Adrian Peterson's last stop to really show any kind of relevance in this game. You know, I don't know if you had an opportunity to hear Adrian Peterson's comments, but he addressed the media after a practice, and you know they talked to him about how effective does he think he can be, averaging under 4 yards a carry last year, and he wasted no time to throw every single one of his teammates on the offensive line over the last 3 years under the bus. He said, and I'm not verbatimly speaking quoting his words, but something to the effect of, in order to be successful, you have to have more working parts than just a running back, and you have to have a really good offensive line. And over the last 3 years, we were kind of weak in that department, and
wow.
But now I'm moved on to a better, to a great organization, albeit Washington, a great organization.
Yeah.
And so looking forward to doing good things. I mean,
Washington, a great organization. I mean, no shout out to you guys if you're a Washington Redskin fan, but great is not the word that comes to mind. Not the first thing that comes to mind when I think about Washington. I did like what they did when they signed all of the free agents in the early 2000s when they brought in Bruce Smith and Randall L. and then they kept going and kept spending money and have nothing to show for it since Mark Ripken.
Yeah.
Mark Ripken was the last time, 1993 I believe it was, against the Buffalo Bills. Jim Kelly and the Buffalo Bills couldn't get it done, a Super Bowl that they should have won, on the back of Ernest Givens. No, not Ernest Givens, that's the Oilers. On the back of Mark Ripken, and who was the running back at that time? Ernest Biner. Ernest Biner.
I don't think, if you ask me, I don't know how much Adrian Peterson has left. Now, I think he, in spurts, can kind of resemble what he did last year, giving you, that big game here and there. But I think the type of back that Adrian Peterson is, which is a volume carry back, we don't see that much in the NFL anymore. The days of those type of running backs getting those type of carries in these sophisticated offenses, I think, are ancient. And Adrian Peterson is not one of those type running backs that you can just line up outside and say, run me an in-breaking route, run me a dig, run me, a speed out, any of those things that you can think of. So, like some of the running backs, Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara can do today. So Le'Veon Bell, so David Johnson, whoever you want to throw out there. So I don't know how effective he can be just being essentially a 2-down back.
I don't believe he's going to be a 2-down back. I think he'll be a 3-down back. Not saying that he should be, but I think Washington is very enamored with,
even when Chris Thompson comes back.
Well, Chris Thompson he's a good change of pace back. They're going to line Chris Thompson up all over the field in the slot, much like they use Le'Veon Bell. Maybe not to that degree as far as the amount of touches. But I think they're going to really try to, use him not just in short situations or goal line situations. That he's going to come out as the starter.
I mean, what's max yards that you think, let's providing he's healthy for all 16 games and he's the starter for all 16 games. I mean, how many yards do you think he can rush for this year? I'll give him, because he's Adrian Peterson, because he's a freak of nature. If he can play all 16 games and not get nicked, I think he could still get you 1,000 to 1,100 yards, which is not a whole lot.
You're super high on him.
That's not a whole lot in today's NFL.
You're super high on him.
Well, I think he'll still have a few of those games where he runs for over 150 yards.
You know what?
They're just going to be so few and far between, unlike what he did the year coming off of that torn ACL when he ran for over 2,000 yards. I mean, he's far removed from any level of production like that. I'd say he'd probably get 20, 25 receptions, maybe. And I think he'll probably find an end zone between, 6 and 8 times collectively. But that's about it. I mean, and I don't know that that's going to result in winning football for the Washington Redskins. I do like their quarterback. I feel, it may be in the minority, but I feel like they upgraded that quarterback. And actually is paying a lot less than what, Kirk Cousins is getting, in
a lot less. Kirk Cousins broke the bank. Jeez. But now we're waiting for Odell Beckham.
Yeah. But, so I still think he can be effective. He obviously is not the back that he used to be. And I don't know how much of a gap there is between him and Samaje Perine, or him and Fat Rob Kelly, or, really even him and Chris Thompson from a level of production standpoint. So we're going to have to see if he can even maintain being a starter, all throughout the year. But if he does, I think he can get over 1,000 yards.
Well, it's funny you say that. When you look at his yards, I think it was Arizona, he played like 6 games. He ran for 448 yards. But unlike a lot of different NFL players, when it comes to a resume like an Adrian Peterson, 8 out of the 11 years, let's say 10, because I can't include this one, he's rushed for over 4 yards a carry.
He's not doing that anymore.
Okay. But even if that, and when you look at the NFL in totality, the NFL's rush per carry, average per carry, is down by 1.9%. I mean, 1.9 yards per carry is down. So a lot of
league average.
That's the league average. So a lot of people are now throwing to the running back. Not that the running back's not getting the ball. The running back is getting the ball in different avenues, whether it be via the pass. You're also going to have running backs that are now splitting carries. You're going to see situations like you see in Minnesota, like they're saying Minnesota is going to say where Dalvin Cook is not going to be the bell cow. You don't believe it.
No, that's just for now. Until you work them back.
But they're doing. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champions. They used a number of running backs.
But they don't have a Dalvin Cook.
Okay, well, I don't want an injured running back. I mean, just saying. How long did Dalvin Cook play? But with that being said, Adrian Peterson averaged over 4 yards a carry for 8 of his 10 seasons. That's remarkable from 2007. Guess what his average was last year, Don? 3.5. So you're telling me he only fell down 0.5%. A half a yard, average-wise. That's pretty impressive. And he didn't have a large body of work. He had 6 games, and he played, 2 games in New Orleans?
Yeah.
Adrian Peterson, if he kept playing, let's say 6 games, he would have rushed over 1,000 yards if he played the whole season.
He will do this year.
So, your ceiling, you're saying you think that's what he's going to rush for 1,000 yards?
I think he can rush for 1,000 yards this year. I don't think he's going to have a great yards per carry. I don't think there'll be much production in the passing game, simply because that's not one of his skill sets, and it never was. But I still think, when we look at Adrian Peterson, he's always been considered that freak. He could have played in the NFL right out of high school, honestly speaking. Mm-hmm. And when he went to Oklahoma, he was a man amongst boys. That carried on into the NFL, and we've seen even in a situation where he tore his ACL.
Right.
He came back in under 8 months, and rushed for 2,000 yards. We've never seen that done before.
Well, you said when he came back.
Yes.
He came back. He rushed for 1,500 yards.
We can look at that. I'm pretty sure that was over 2,000 yards.
Well, he ran for 2. Well, he got injured the second game of the season in 2014.
No.
So
that was in 2011.
2011, he played 12 games.
He ran for 970 yards.
Okay, but as you say, after the ACL, I believe was
no. The ACL was in 11.
Okay.
ACL was in 11, and then in 12 he rushed for over 2,000 yards.
Gotcha.
And coming back under 8 months. And so we know that he's a freak of nature. So if anybody can do it, if anybody can destroy, the odds at Father Time, a lot like how we see in Tom Brady do at the quarterback position.
Alan Wright just chimes in and says his first carry for the Redskins was for 7 yards. Oh, he's averaging 7 yards per carry.
Wow.
Thanks, Alan. Man's on the job. 7 yards a carry.
Hey, he must be. The preseason guy, is underway, so maybe he's on to something. They're gonna have to keep him healthy through this game.
And another thing we got to realize is he's fresh.
Yeah.
He's fresh. So he didn't have a lot of carries. I mean, he had, I think the first game, if I recall, he ran for almost 200 yards that first game with Arizona, or the second game or something like that. He had something ridiculous. Didn't you have him on your fantasy team?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, yeah. So Adrian Peterson's back in the fold with the NFC East. We'll see if it helps to watch the Redskins dethrone the NFC and Super Bowl champs, or if he gives the Dallas or the Giants a run. A lot of running backs over there in the NFC East, so keep your eye out. And if you're a fantasy guy, you may want to consider taking him late in the 7th or 8th round. That's what I'm going to say. I'm not taking him any higher than that. The Super Bowl champs was on yesterday in their third preseason game, as we alluded to earlier in the show. Put up a dud. Dunkin' Donuts, 0. That's right, Cleveland wins 5-0. And man, that was an ugly game, but I tell you that Greg, I call him the Greg, the guy that started the Bounty Bowl. Greg Williams, I think it is?
Greg Williams.
Boy, he has that defense playing pretty good over there in Cleveland. I don't know if it's hard knocks or just being in the spotlight. They played really good against the first team offense, not including Alshon Jeffries or Jason Peters or Darren Sproles or Nelson Aguilar. We understand all that. But it's very impressive what he had them do. They went after the ball. They had the least amount of turnovers, or second to least amount of turnovers in the NFL last year, and now turned that around. And Greg Williams, 2 years ago, and turned that around. Greg Williams comes there and makes a statement. And I like what I see from Cleveland. Baker Mayfield, what do you have to take away from the game? I think he threw for 65 yards. Very dink and dunk.
Yeah.
Very vanilla offense for him. Tyrod Taylor got hurt early in the first half. Came back. I didn't understand that, but he came back and played and still looked horrible. Nick Foles looked horrible, despite having a really good completion rate. He also completed a couple balls to the opposite team. 2 interceptions, a fumble, and got sacked for a safety. But what is that to blame on? Is that to blame on Vitae on the left side, or is that to blame of the coaching? Dougie P, of course, kept it going and going for it on 4th down, and as he does, and as he did last year, continued that streak here throughout the preseason. And it was just is there a cause for alarm in Philadelphia? Is there a cause for alarm when you see a guy that went out and we disagree about this all the time, Don. Mm-hmm. If Carson Wentz played in that game in the playoffs, despite being some would say unanimous decision that he would have been the MVP if he played the whole season, to say that man would take them to the point that Nick Foles took them to host that Lombardi, I'm going to be on the opposite side of that, of what you view to be the answer. I'm going to say that he doesn't. It's too many variables. Nick Foles played out of his mind. This does not mean I think Nick Foles is a better quarterback. This does not think I think Nick Foles is a Hall of Famer, even though he has his jersey in the Hall of Fame, 7 touchdowns. But in Philly special. But Carson Wentz could have did one or two things. He could have ran when he shouldn't have ran. I mean, when you see the pass to Corey Clement in the back of the end zone, when you see the pass to Alshon Jeffries on the outside for 50 yards, these things, not saying Carson Wentz doesn't have an ability to do so, but it was just Nick Foles could not do any wrong in the playoffs. Now, some of you said he had a shaky game against Atlanta. Okay, but Minnesota, he lit them up.
Yes.
You put up over 40 points on the New England Patriots. Mm-hmm. Impressive. We can't sit there and say, if I take this person out, that this is going to happen. You can't sit here and take me off the show, Don, and think that you're going to do the same job that I do. And I can't take you off the show and think I'm going to have the same effect with you on the show. So with that being said, Don, I don't know how you view that Nick Foles, if we substitute him with Carson Wentz, that it would have the same outcome.
Well, listen, my judgment on that is based off of how I
says I'm right. Right on.
Listen. If he didn't pay me, I would say a lot of things right now to him. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. Right. When we look at Nick Foles, I don't think we should be surprised at what we've seen in this preseason thus far. That's who Nick Foles has always been.
He's fair.
He's inconsistent. When you least expect it, he goes on some kind of miraculous run in the playoffs. But prior to that, How did he look in that closing the regular season? How did he look in that playoff game against Atlanta?
It was cold. It was cold. I was at that Oakland game. It was cold. Both quarterbacks look terrible. Okay. He shows up in big games, and that's proven.
So
that's documented.
So I'm not gonna, but there's no mistake, and I'm not gonna dive all into that. And you know, I know you would love nothing more but to go back and forth with that. But I do believe that Wentz would have, played a lot, even better than Nick Foles in that playoff run, and still would have captured the Eagles a Super Bowl victory. But in terms of Nick Foles and the concern level going into this season, I'm not concerned. And it doesn't have a whole lot to do with the fact of how Nick Foles is playing.
Okay.
I hope that he gets it together. There's no doubt about it. But, I think that this Atlanta team that the Eagles are going to go up against, is still kind of second-guessing themselves. After losing that Super Bowl in the fashion in which they did against, against the Patriots, then coming in last year and losing that playoff game to the Eagles when it was very, very close. The Eagles did not even play extremely well on offense and, could have lost that game. Ball went right through the hands, of Julio Jones. And I'm not going to lie, he did get pass interference, even though you can't call it at the end of the game like that, but just speaking of fact. However, the defense was so stout against them that's what really won us that game. Nick Foles did all but almost give that game up. Mm-hmm. So I'm not concerned. If I didn't see the defense starting to round into form, through this preseason, then I would have been concerned. Okay. But because I seen this defense doing so, they're going to give Nick Foles several opportunities at short field advantage for him to be able to take advantage where all he has to do is make some competent NFL throws, which I believe Nick Foles can do. I don't think that Nick Foles is that guy that went on that magical run. That's not something that he's going to be able to do often. But, if this defense can force turnovers, which I believe they'll be able to get to Matt Ryan, if this defense can create an atmosphere where, again, this offense is getting some really favorable field position, then I think that their Eagles will be A-okay. Now, that being said, Wentz has to hurry back. The beginning part of the schedule for the Eagles is not very tough.
Well, okay.
So,
someone argue.
So I think Carson Wentz could potentially start the season. But if he doesn't, I'm not overly concerned about Nick Foles because I already know who Nick Foles is. He's inconsistent.
Inconsistent in the regular season.
Inconsistent in the regular season, absolutely.
Okay, well, we will see. Well, we don't want to see. But it is. I'm laughing at Mr. Wright's comments about Stephen A. Smith not saying that Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer. I'm going to say this. He said this. He said, I said Eli Manning is borderline Hall of Famer. Mr. Wright says Stephen A. Smith said he's not. He doesn't think Eli's a Hall of Famer, but he's 2 rings. He's won rings faster than Peyton Manning did, who will go down arguably as probably one of the most intelligent and most well-prepared quarterbacks that this NFL has seen. That was including the likes of Joe Montana. That's including the likes of Tom Brady. It may not have won as much as Tom Brady, but I've never seen Peyton Manning dissect. I mean, I seen it with Tom Brady. I did see it with Tom Brady. I seen it with Joe Montana. But I think Peyton Manning is sets himself apart a little bit from Tom Brady. In
terms of playing the position,
and playing it and really studying the position. Both guys didn't have natural athletic ability, so they had to learn off of, they had to strengthen other areas of their game, and they did so. But I think a student of the game, the first name that comes to my mind is Peyton Manning. And body language is everything. So when we say Eli, I understand why people say Eli and Nick Foles. Because those two have the two worst body languages I've ever seen out of a quarterback. You got blank stare, Eli, and then you got, I don't know what I should do with this football, Nick Foles. But he knew what to do last year. Mm-hmm. And Whip's going to kill you about this Wentz comment. He's not. He thinks we wouldn't have won without Wentz. You can't change it.
He thinks we wouldn't have won with
It's
Wentz?
possible that we would not have won the Super Bowl without Wentz. I mean, if Wentz played, he can't say that for definite that we would have won the Super Bowl, and I can't say that. No one can say that.
Well, that's why Whip's
What do you
not on
think?
the air, and I am. Okay.
Oh wow! Shout out to Whip. Pew, pew. But yeah, should Philadelphia be alarmed by the performance?
No.
Now you mentioned schedule, and the Philadelphia Eagles open up against the Atlanta Falcons on Thursday night. First game of the regular season, September 6th. And then they go into the Colts. They go after the Colts. Where are they at? Tennessee? No, I'm sorry. They go Falcons. Then it goes the Buccaneers. Then it goes the Colts. Then they go to Titans. Some would say that the perfect timing to bring him back would be Tampa, or maybe even the Colts. But I ask myself this: does 2 weeks off really help you as an athlete when you're coming off injury? Like, is it really that much of a big deal? Now, it's a new medical staff in Philadelphia, so they have to look out for their reputation. Doug Peterson not only has to sign off on it, but Jeffrey Lurie has to sign off on it if this happens and Wentz starts. I have them losing the first game despite whoever is the quarterback. Once again, I'm thinking Super Bowl hangover, not for the year, but for the game. Think about it. You beat Atlanta at your own hometown. Atlanta's upset about 2 years ago when they lost the lead and blundered it against New England. Then they come into Philadelphia and was one catch away from advancing to go play them again and try to get some revenge, which I don't think they would have won. And now it's fresh, and they get to see you first in your own home on a prime time with all these different questions in Philadelphia. Is Nelson Aguilar going to play? Is Alshon Jeffries going to play? Is Jason Peters going to play? Is Darren Sproles back? What's going on with the quarterback position? Is Sidney Jones starting, or is it Jalen Mills? Who's in the slot? Who is Ajayi good enough to carry the workload? All these questions. And put the cherry on the top. You are the Super Bowl champions. Everyone's going to give you their best effort. You'll see that even preseason. You're going to get your best effort. And there's no need to panic if you lose. If they lose the first game, I'm okay with that. But you think it's far-fetched that they would lose this game, despite who is the starter. You think they're going to win either way?
Oh, absolutely.
Nate Sudfeld starts, they win.
They win.
Christian Hackenberg starts, they win.
I won't go that far. I will not go that far. I like the way Nate Sudfeld looked during the preseason. He makes me feel comfortable. If we were to, which I know the market's probably cooled down, on Nick Foles due to his play in the preseason, but he makes me feel comfortable with him, going in as that second quarterback. He can actually do a lot of the things that Carson can do. He can't do everything that Carson can do, but he can do a lot of things that Carson can do. And, because of that, listen, I don't want them to rush Carson back before he's ready. And we know that the medical staff is going to have the ultimate say-so or clearance on this situation, even though he wants to come back week one. That's always been his goal. He's been very, very transparent about that. And I wouldn't be surprised if it does. He looks amazing in camp. He's now doing 11 on 11s, which is a very, very good sign. Even though he hasn't played any of the games in the preseason, that does not shake me at all. It doesn't surprise me. That's a part of the plan of what they were doing. In terms of installing the game plan, in terms of, getting those first team reps down and stuff like that, that's all he would need, more so the practice. Because last time we seen Wentz on the field, he was very dominant. But if we have to start the season with Nick Foles, I am not shaken. I don't know what Nick Foles, he could surprise and throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He could throw for 180 yards and no touchdowns and 1 interception. Either way, I think that this defense is going to show up and show out. It's in Philadelphia. Now, if it was in Atlanta, I would absolutely have a little bit more trepidation about this game. But because it's in Philadelphia, the banners are going to be hung. It's going to be a great night in Philadelphia. Nice and hopefully light winds. Feeling good, a little brisk, but nothing too crazy. and just the Philly fans rocking. You know, listen.
Hey, we might gotta get tickets down there, man. Get me excited. Get me
We
excited.
might have to do something.
Get excited.
Might have to hit Xfinity Live or something. You know?
Something's got to go on, man. Listen, I mentioned the stat earlier this show about something. I can't even give it away. I mentioned the stat.
I know you want to help, but
I mentioned a couple stats, but there's one in particular I mentioned about Adrian Peterson.
Come on, man.
Hey, listen. If you can tell me what it is, you win your T-shirt. Brandon Longacre. Come on, man. I know you know this answer. I don't care if you didn't tune in. You better look at the thread. There was a stat I mentioned about Adrian Peterson. I need you to repeat that stat on the message board before we close out, and you can win yourself, of course, an outside the locker room T-shirt with yours truly and Adonis Sports on it. So, I mean, can somebody give me the answer? Somebody give me the answer. If not, I'm going to win the T-shirt. Whip's going to have to get me one.
Anybody got that stat that Birdman threw out there
Yeah,
earlier?
it was a very good stat. It's a very good stat. You guys don't have that long. We got 3 minutes left and 4 minutes left in the show. If you don't get it, then I'm going to get it, and, you know, I'm fine. 3X, Whip, please. I mean, I'm not, 3X. I'm just saying. Because, I like to be loose in my shirts. But third preseason game is in the books. Fourth preseason is coming up. We got some games being played right now. Actually, we can get you abreast of what's going on in those games right now. As Alan told us that Adrian Peterson has 7 yards rushing, but despite his 7 yards, they have no points. So it really doesn't matter. Adrian Peterson. Let's go on the Adrian Peterson watch. What does this guy have?
I don't know if they've even gotten the ball back yet.
They probably didn't. They show the first video you see on there is Adrian Peterson getting his 7 yards. But Adrian Peterson, Alex Smith is 0 for 2. Adrian Peterson, 8 carries for 35 yards. Where's it at, Donna Sports? Around 3 and some change. The Birdman has spoken. 3 and some change. Give me some change. Did anybody get the stat? Come on. Hey! Aaron got the stat right. Aaron has won a T-shirt.
Good
with
job,
an
Aaron.
Outside the locker room T-shirt. Whip, get that man his shirt.
We got to get your information, Aaron.
Listen, we get your information. Will probably knows. It's probably Will's uncle.
Okay, could be.
Listen. Shout out to Will's daughter as well. I know she's recovering from a broken arm.
Speedy recovery.
Speedy recovery. You're in our prayers as well. Folks, it's been nice. It's been lovely. You guys have been tuned in to the show. We're going to be back here, of course, same bad time, same bad channel next week, 7 to 8 for all your latest and greatest news. And that will be, when we come back next week, that will be the close of the preseason.
Yes, it will.
Oh, yep, that night, the last game.
Before, yeah.
We're talking about project. Then we'll be talking about next show. You got fantasy, and we got to be talking about. Oh, wait, he said. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the board, guys. You have to see the board. Then we're talking about fantasy, and then we'll be talking about projected cut lists. Because now, after this game, you're going to start seeing teams' rosters start to decrease as they have to get to that 53-man roster. So, shout out to everyone that's been listening to the show. It's been nice. It's been lovely. And we're out of here. Let's pay some bills, man.
Let's pay these bills.
your game today. I played your game today.
Oh, I do? Well, remember he said he's not coming back until Oh, okay. And I've been on the game all this week. My bad. Yeah, because she might be in there. Oh, no, maybe not.
I'm losing track. We're still live, and I can't do a conversation. You got an edge of context?
She wasn't saved to my
Yeah, but why can't I send it? That doesn't make sense.
to compose one. There you go back. Look. Just hit this.
That's what I just hit. I just hit this. Oh.
And then hit start. No, start. Once you put the note.
We got this going on, man. Why going on, man? You gotta come on. If not, I'm gonna get up and do it myself.
Give me a problem if she don't got her phone.
She got her phone. Here she go. The worst. The worst. And we're still live. We're still live of all that time.